Hey guys, today's video, we're going to answer 6 questions straight from the audience. We're going to be talking about damage protection and how do you deal with guests breaking things. We're going to talk about bad neighbors. We're going to talk about game rooms. We're going to talk about amenities. We're going to talk about what you need to be doing to be a good host in 2024. So if you guys want answers to these questions, make sure to stick around to the very end because this last question is going to be the one you really want to listen to.
We are the Real Estate Robinsons.
All right, question number 1. Just starting to put together my first listing for Airbnb, and I am on an extremely tight budget. Any advice on what items are best to focus on? So I'm assuming this person's talking about like design and amenities and what to actually put into the property. And I don't do design. So what do you think?
We just always like to focus on amenities. That is really, I think, what people look for in your listings is what else besides, the beds and showers and kitchen are really gonna make me want to stay at your property. And for us, we've always, as the guest, said that that is the amenities. So that's something that we really focus on our properties. So you can really do a lot, even on a tight budget with amenities. Obviously, if you're tight on money, you can't get the standard hot tub or pool or what else, like a full-on game room, but you can add smaller, more affordable amenities. One thing we add, and I think is so cool, is like a gaming console. So we add a Nintendo Switch at all of our properties. Not all of our properties, all of our...
The bigger ones.
Yeah, the bigger ones. And that is so cool. We get really cool shots with our photographer. We do a lot of board games.
I think something else that we started adding to, and we started doing this last year, but are more family-friendly amenities.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll do like a pack and play. We'll do a high chair. We'll do... I think that's really it. I guess for like the baby stuff.
We're new parents, so we're like coming up on learning all the new things that are necessary for a stay for a family. But yeah, high chair, a pack and play.
Yeah, those are the main thing. But just think about like the little, if you just go through the amenities on Airbnb, there's a long list and they're constantly adding more.
Yeah.
Just see how many of those boxes you can actually check.
Right.
And the more boxes you can check, because people can search by the amenities, right? Mm-hmm. So if people see the amenity they need in your listing, there's a higher chance of them booking. So there's a lot that you can actually add to your property. And this is gonna vary from market to market, but also think about what's important to the travelers in that city. I was just in Utah, we're closing on a hotel out there, and the hotel I stayed at catered to people traveling with their pets. Like there was underneath the queen bed, there was like a built-in like roll away bed just for the dogs. It was all hardwood floors throughout the entire place. And obviously if there's accidents or something, it's easier to clean. There was a dog park, just like little things that really catered to people who want to travel with their pets. I didn't even have a pet, but it just happened to be like the nicest hotel in that city. And I stayed there anyway. So think about what's important to folks in your town. We just stayed at an Airbnb in Oceanside, which is like a beach town here in SoCal. And I thought it was really nice. I don't even know if you saw this, but they had a like one of those wagons you can pull, like the ones you get from Costco.
Oh yeah.
And they had a boogie board. They had 2 boogie boards. They had an umbrella for the beach, and just like little things you want to take with you if you were going to the beach. But
That's
it was
so cute.
nice they had that, and you didn't have to bring it for yourself.
Yeah.
So why are people going to your specific market? What might they be doing while they're in that city? And what things can you add to kind of make that experience a little bit easier for them?
Okay, that's a great tip. Totally agree. And something else I just thought of while you were talking is things in the kitchen that you can add. So obviously you're going to have a coffee maker, but add the coffee. So the K-Pods, the creamer. In the restrooms, add shampoo, conditioner, body wash, Q-tips, like whatever small things you would help a traveler eliminate packing, and then take nice photos of these items and include those in your listing, in your listing description. That adds to the chances of someone booking your stay over another, even if they have a cool game room, just because that means they'll, it's just an easier stay. There's more at your property that they won't need to pack. So think of the smaller details as well, if you're on a budget or if not.
And last thing I'll say is just trying to give your guests a space to get that Instagrammable moment or that, that social media moment. Sarah does a really good job along with our designer, Bree, of like giving each one of our houses somewhere to kind of have that moment. And I really do think it plays well in photos, and
Yeah.
it shows your space in a light that maybe other people don't get. And when they're scrolling, it hopefully helps them stop the scroll and land on your listing.
Yeah, so like Tony said, I love creating these spaces for people to take photos. An easy way to do that is do neon signs. I'm a big neon sign girl, and you can make custom neon signs with so many Etsy shops. So just go on Etsy, look for neon sign. You'll get inspo on what quotes to say, or like the name of your property, or some catchy phrase about the town that your property's in. So neon signs are a hit right now. What else? Murals. Those are a little bit more expensive, but they really have a big impact on your property. So if you have the budget for a mural, highly recommend. And again, going back into the kitchen stuff, I just thought of like small things like popcorn bags, hot chocolate bags, or even, we just stayed at the Oceanside one and they left a bottle of wine with a nice card. So,
Or like I stayed at that Airbnb in West Virginia, and there was like freshly baked bread at the property. So just little things like that probably don't cost a whole heck of a lot, but that really give that amazing first impression to your guests when they check in.
Totally. And again, market this in your photos and in your listing, and your guests will probably do free marketing for you in the reviews, but don't be afraid, like overshare what these small amenities are that you are providing in your listing and in the photos.
Okay, moving on to question number 2. How do you guys manage cash flow within your Airbnb business? I'm struggling to keep track of profits and expenses, and I just want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. All right, so first, we'll link to a video in the description where we break down in pretty deep detail how we actually manage cash flow in our business. But at a high level, we have 5 accounts for every single property, or kind of for every single property, but we have a OpEx account that stands for operating expenses. So all of the income and expenses come in and out of that one account. We have a reserve account. So this is where we save money away for a rainy day for that property. If we need to have a big repair, like we had a property where we had to replace, it doesn't matter what it is, HVAC, hot water heater, whatever.
Big expenses. Yeah. Unexpected expenses.
So we have our operating expense, we have our reserves, we have our team member pay account. So this is where we pay all of our team members, our virtual assistants. And this isn't like vendors, like cleaners and handymen. These are people who are actually on your team, okay? And for us, it's mostly our virtual assistants. We have our owner's pay account, which is how we pay ourselves on a regular basis. And then we also have a profit hold account, and we have a tax hold account. So I guess technically there's 6. The tax hold account is where we put money away every month for taxes, right? We want to make sure that if we do get a tax bill at the end of the year, that we're not scrambling to come up with that money. We've got it stocked away into account specifically earmarked for taxes. And then the profit hold account, slightly different from the owner's pay account. Think of the owner's pay account as what we pay ourselves for doing work within the business. The profit hold account is what we pay ourselves for owning the business. And the goal for us is that over time, the owner's pay account, what we pay ourselves, gets smaller, and the profit, what we pay ourselves from that account, gets bigger because we're shifting more of that responsibility down to our team members. We're not there yet, right? We still have some involvement in the day-to-day, but the majority, honestly, our team is handling for us. So those are the accounts that we have: operating expenses, reserves, team member pay, owner's pay, tax hold, and profit hold. Now, guys, we've looked at a bunch of different banking solutions to try and manage all these different bank accounts. And think about when you scale up, we have, I think, 31 or 32 active listings right now. When you scale up to that many properties, it gets kind of tricky to try and manage
6 accounts for each property, you know, it started to get really complicated, really messy.
So we finally found the right business bank to kind of power this method of banking, and that's Relay Financial. And we didn't come up with this, these 6 different accounts. It actually comes from a book called Profit First. And you guys should all go read that book because it's a phenomenal read. But Relay was the only bank we could find that could really align with this profit first methodology. So the way that it works is that every single month on the 25th, we have a percentage-based allocation that takes money from the OpEx account and then disperses it across all those other accounts. So we leave a certain amount in the OpEx to cover all of the ongoing expenses. Every other bucket gets filled. The beauty with Relay is that these transfers happen automatically every single month. So all I have to do is go in, set up how much money I want transferred into the profit hold account, how much money I want transferred into the tax hold account, how much I want transferred into the owner's pay, into the team member pay. And then every single month, like clockwork, it moves that money out of the OpEx account and into those other accounts. So I can see at any given time, just by opening up my app, how much money do we have set aside for a rainy day? Do we have enough money in the bank accounts to pay our team members? Do we have enough to cover all of our business type expenses? So Relay has been an absolutely critical tool in us managing cash flow in our business confidently. So we're gonna drop a link in the description for Relay, but if you want, head over to relayfinancial.com/therealestaterobinsons and you guys can sign up using our link. All right, here's question number 3. We are setting up our second Airbnb and we noticed some problematic behavior from the neighbors on their patio this weekend. Have you run into this and how did you handle?
I'm so curious to know what problematic means. I'm thinking of like naked people like doing something crazy over the fence. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, her mind always goes to the worst situations. I'm assuming just, like me, maybe they're partying, maybe they're giving the guests a hard time. We've had that situation as well. We actually have one neighbor in Joshua Tree that's like a legitimate, like racist, misogynistic. Yeah, just like has said some really terrible things. We've had a couple multiple different guests have called the cops on this one guest.
Our
on this
cleaners, our handymen. So they're problematic in the sense that they hate Airbnbs and are very verbally harassing our team and our guests. Yeah. So that's why when this person's asking about problematic, like I'm like, are they just like anti-Airbnb neighbors or are they like crazy rager neighbors?
Yeah.
We've never dealt with those,
Yeah, like, and even in that situation, like, like literally arguing with our guests and, we had a gay couple that stayed there and he was saying all kinds of crazy things. We had a black guest that was there and he was calling the N-word. Our cleaners are Hispanic. He's saying crazy things to them. And, the cops have been called and they're like, hey, he's just like shouting mean things from across the street. Unfortunately, we can't really do anything about that. Unless there's like a threat of violence or, something physical that happens, like we can't act on that. So I think all we did, we like built a bigger fence at the front of the property to kind of like
we literally
block
built
the view.
A fence, like a partial fence, literally just to block this neighbor. There's been times where our guests have said that they feel unsafe because of this neighbor. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. We tell them we're so sorry, we apologize. If you really feel concerned for your safety, please call the police. Like, we're too far away to do anything.
Or even if we were there, like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, so we have refunded guests, because we know this is a real issue, and we've even thought about buying his house.
I literally looked up the owner to see if we could just buy his house.
We know he's renting, but
we
this
haven't reached out to him.
mother effer, like, seriously is affecting our business just because I don't know why. He's an angry man that hates Airbnbs, I think.
And the craziest part is that this guy runs a daycare.
Yeah.
There's literally a daycare being run out of his house. So it's like, oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, but what can you do to handle a situation? I think if it's a party issue and say that you're in a complex or something, I'd reach out to the property manager and the landlord and see if they can intervene to hopefully help solve that issue. If it's like a noise complaint issue, then call the cops, right? Like, it's like a public nuisance. If there's a big rager happening, people call the cops and they shut the party down. So I think it depends on what the situation is.
For sure. And if it happens to be another Airbnb, hopefully you have that owner's phone number and just reach out to the owner directly, don't even bother, playing middleman with, like going to the next neighbor's house, whatever, just contact the neighbors directly. We've actually had
a neighbor contact us.
Yeah. So our cabins are pretty close by. And I think it's happened twice now where that owner says their guests are trying to go to sleep and our guests are like partying a little too crazy. So I just contact the guests myself and told them what was going on, and they're apologetic and tone it down. So always good to have your neighbors' phone numbers, whether they're Airbnb hosts themselves or not. So make sure you get your neighbors' phone numbers. And another pro tip is just always become friendly with your neighbors. So as soon as you lock in the property, highly recommend you go over, introduce yourself. I would say feel it out a little bit.
I feel like it depends on the neighbor.
Totally. Don't straight up say like, oh, I'm going to turn this into an Airbnb, because there are a lot of neighbors that really hate Airbnbs and will right away just be a dick to you, So
a lot of times when people ask us now, we'll say, we don't know yet, maybe.
Maybe,
we're just like rehabbing it right now and we're still going to try and figure it out.
Yeah, so just kind of feel them out, get their contact information for sure. That is like really why you should reach out to them. Yeah. And just kind of play friendly neighbor card. You should always be friendly, right? We've done stuff in the past where we've like went and met them and taken like a box of cookies or something. So it's just really good to be on your neighbor's good side.
Terms.
Yeah.
All right. And here's question number 4. What are your recommendations for boosting occupancy in the current market? It's a great question. We've got properties in 3 different states right now, listings in 3 different states. We're in California, we're in Texas, and we're in Tennessee. And the non-California properties year over year are doing pretty spot on, right? They're they're pacing to do exactly what they did last year, which is good. Our Joshua Tree properties, on the other hand, have seen revenues decrease pretty steadily year over year. We do have some properties that are up, but I say if you look at our specifically the Joshua Tree properties are probably down year over year as a whole. The Airbnb bust is, I think, an unfair statement because it's very market specific. As many markets that are down, there's probably just as many that are up year over year. So I think it's unfair for a lot of these folks to say, hey, the entire Airbnb industry is kaput because of just a few cities that are seeing these negative impacts. Now, that being said, what are we doing to try and increase occupancy? And really, it's not just occupancy, it's revenue. But we're taking the stance of reinvesting back into our existing portfolio. So Sarah's done a really, really good job of designing a lot of game rooms for our properties.
Yeah.
A lot of our properties that have garages that are big enough in the Joshua Tree market, we're going back and we're spending, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 to add in these game rooms. And we've seen a pretty positive increase.
They're just so cute. I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, they've done really well. And seriously, we can tell the difference between our 3 bedrooms and Joshua Tree that have game rooms and those that don't. It's a very clear difference in terms of the revenue, which is why we're trying to go back and add it to all of those. We're just hopefully this week, we're going to be finishing off our first in-ground pool at one of our Joshua Tree properties as well.
We're excited for that.
And super excited for that. I mean, that's a big expense. It was $115,000 for that pool. So not a small expense by any means, but we felt that's what we needed to do to continue to compete.
And we're financing that.
And but still, it's a big cost.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing that folks have to recognize is that right now you have the option. You can take your capital and you can either put it into a new property, or you can take some of that capital and maybe spread it out by improving and reinvesting into some of your existing properties. And sometimes that incremental investment might offset or increase more than you go out and buy a new property.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the approach that we're taking right now.
Yeah, totally. So our perspective on this is that our portfolio is like an everlasting science project. We are tweaking everything as big as turning in a garage into a game room, and as small as constantly getting new listing photos and changing those to see which one is the best cover photo. So we are literally always tweaking our description, our property, everything. So if you take anything away from this question, just know that you should always be adjusting your property. Don't just stop because you hit go live. So always tweak, always, always, always.
That's a really good point, babe. I think a lot of people think the work stops once you publish your listing, but that's really when the hard work begins.
Yeah.
And as this space matures, as more people come into the Airbnb market, the level of competition is going to increase as well. So you've got to really be on top of how can I continue to focus on guest experience? How can I continue to make my property stand out amongst the competition? One that we have noticed though is we put up our first arbitrage units this year, and it's been so much easier to run and manage those ones and kind of compete because
it's the traveler.
It's the traveler.
Yeah.
Our Joshua Tree, our Smoky Mountain properties, those are people are planning for months for these big vacations.
This is a vacation. Yeah. So I think when you are traveling for leisure and to have fun, that's I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to stay at a place that's going to give me a good time. And when you stay at a place that doesn't give you a good time, you're pissed and you're going to let that host know. Versus our arbitrage deals, what would you call that?
They're
metropolitan.
Yeah, metro, big cities, and these.
But they're not going there to vacation,
They're going there for work, maybe to visit family quickly, but they're not there just to hang out in your unit all day.
Girl, they are the easiest guests ever. They hardly ever complain, and those units are whatever. They're not fabulous. They were the showers are old. We didn't renovate anything in these units, and there's no crazy amenity, and literally they're amazing. So if you want an easy guest and an easy property, maybe that would be a good direction.
All right, let's go to question number 5. I want to make our garage into a game room. Any advice on what to do for the floors? I'd still like to park one car in there in the summer. And then also, what are the best games to get for the game room? So,
That's tricky to still park a car there. The flooring, I feel like, has to remain the natural garage flooring, right?
or you could do like an epoxy.
Yeah, that's true. So we've done 3 different types of flooring for our game rooms that are inside garages. Number 1 is we've just epoxied the garage floor. This is probably the most cost efficient, I would say. And we just put out a nice rug, so it kind of warms up the space and makes it a little bit cozier. Second, next option we've done is hardwood flooring. This kind of makes it a little bit more elevated of a space and makes it, flow throughout the entire house. So it doesn't really feel like a garage anymore once you add the wood flooring. And the third style we've done is actually to put turf. So this was a new thing for us. We wanted to incorporate like a mini golf game room. So that's why we chose to do the turf. And I thought it worked for that space, right?
Well.
But if you are wanting to turn in your garage into a game room, but still have space to park a car, I think just naturally you need to keep your garage floor, the garage like concrete floor, and maybe just add the epoxy to it.
Yeah, I personally probably just wouldn't like turn the whole space into the game room because it's just going to look weird having the car parked in the garage there as well. So I'm not sure why you'd also want to park it in the garage. Like maybe there's no street parking or something, but I feel like guests would prefer to have the full game room experience than having a game room and a car. It just kind of takes away from the whole vibe of the space.
But I mean, I guess if you really want to just like split the garage in the 2-car garage in half, right? And just really make one side of it a game room. I mean, just line up like pinball machine, arcade games, just along one wall. And that's pretty much all you're going to be able to do. If you want to make it feel a little bit more like a full game room, maybe just design the entire 4 walls, like paint them all and just really make it all feel like a full room, but not the games on the side that you're going to park the car. But doesn't sound very cute. So I would say just don't park the car there, girl.
Yeah. And honestly, I think game rooms are one of those amenities that are going to be really important moving forward. You've already seen some markets like, we talk about Disney a lot because they've got the craziest amenities there, but you see a lot of really cool game rooms in Disney. And I feel like that trend is going to start making its way into some of these other markets as well. So if you really want to ride that wave before it kind of takes over, I'd say everyone should start investing into game rooms now. All right, and finally, question number 6. What is the best way to go about collecting damage fees from guests on Airbnb? This is one of those fears that a lot of aspiring Airbnb investors have, is that every single guest is going to come in and just like totally damage and wreck their property. We've had thousands of guests go through our properties, and it's only a very small minority who damage the property to the point where we need to file a significant damage claim. Most of the times it's small things like someone broke a glass, someone chipped something, but like where they totally trash the place, that very rarely happens.
But the small damages do happen, and quite often, I would say, right? So yeah, we often get messages saying, oh my God, I accidentally broke the cute thing on the wall, or I broke a mug. And those are super easy to handle. It's not the end of the world. If it's a design piece, I always just reorder right away. So, that way the next guest coming into the property still see the property as it's listed in our photos,
photographed. But we also we don't charge the guests for everything. And we were actually just talking about this yesterday. We really need to create like a matrix for charging guests. But if it's something small, it's like someone broke one mug, we're probably not going to charge them for one mug. But if they broke, like we had a guest that damaged one of our couches, we charged them for the whole couch. Or like there was some decorative piece. It was kind of expensive. I think it was like $75 or something like that. We charged the guest to replace that piece. So there is a bit of a sliding scale there. I'd say don't, if your guest just paid $1,000 to stay at your property, don't charge them, $25 to replace this thing. Just eat that cost. So you got to figure out where to draw that line. So, and I just want to mention, I talked about this couch. So we did submit a damage claim through AirCover, through Airbnb, but we actually did not get reimbursed the full amount of the couch. And so it might be helpful here to talk about how the damage process works with Airbnb. So Airbnb has something called AirCover. And AirCover is basically, it's not insurance, okay? It's definitely not insurance, but it's Airbnb's way of trying to mediate issues between the guests and the hosts. So when you submit a damage claim, say we want $100 from our guest, that $100 request goes to the guest first, and they can see why we're requesting those funds from them. And then they have the option to either accept or decline that request. If they accept, cool. We get the money, all said and done, and they check out, they do their thing. If they say no, then an air cover case is opened, and then Airbnb, a representative, steps in. They get our story, they get the guest story, they try to understand what's going on, and then they work to mediate that. And sometimes Airbnb might say, like, hey, will you take $50 instead of $100? We'll say, no, we want the full $100. And then Airbnb says, okay, cool, we need proof of what you paid and give me receipts and how much it costs to fix. So it is a pretty involved process if the guest doesn't say yes, and you're not always guaranteed to get your full amount back.
So for the couch, for example, we wanted to just replace it altogether because that's how damaged we thought it was. And Air Cover's representative asked us to get a quote to have like a cleaning service come in and deep clean the stain from this guest. So we did that, didn't remove the stain, and that was just the most we were granted, whatever the cost of, the upholsterer, cleaners people were, but that was it. So that was a crappy situation for us as hosts. We often do hear from a lot of hosts, like on Facebook groups, complaining, saying that Air Cover is more team guests. I would say I don't really feel that way. Do you? I don't really think so.
Airbnb's gotten better. I feel like before Air Cover, it definitely was more pro guest.
Yeah.
But since Air Cover's come along, it's definitely gotten better. But I will say I do like Vrbo more as a host when it comes to damage protection, because Vrbo we force our guests to buy damage protection insurance when they book. So they can either pay, whatever, $75, $100 or $125. And that basically gives them an insurance policy. So it's non-refundable, but say they paid $75 and there's damage that occurs, they have damage protection up to like, whatever, $2,500, right? So it's a way for us to ensure that we get money back from those Vrbo guests. And if there's a damage claim, it's not even a question of yes or no. We just fill out, okay, cool, we need this much back, and then we get it back. So I do like Vrbo for that reason. And there's third-party stuff too, like, what was it, Superhog, I think. And there's some other like third-party options that are out there that you can make your guests sign up for when they're booking your property. So that's it for today, guys. We hope you enjoyed these 6 questions. We hope you got some value from them. And if you guys want to submit questions, you can reach out to us on Instagram. I'm at Tony J. Robinson. My wife is at Sarah Rad Robinson. And maybe we'll use your question for one of our next episodes. That's it for today, guys. I'm Tony.
I'm Sarah.
And we are
the Real Estate Robinsons.